Hi, I'm Nate, 34, and 6 months ago, I spent $200,000 on a luxury world cruise to give my parents the retirement of a lifetime. When they returned, they brought home something I didn't see coming. My ex. Asterisk, it was supposed to be their dream trip. Mom had spent 40 years teaching elementary school. Dad had put in even more behind the counter at a small-town hardware store. Every penny they saved went to keeping us kids fed, the lights on, and the house barely afloat. So when they finally retired, I wanted to give them something they'd never forget. Not a backyard barbecue or some photo book of their legacy. A real adventure. A luxury world cruise. 5 continents, a private suite with a balcony, excursions in Tuscany and Tahiti, lobster dinners, the whole 9 yards. I paid in full. No strings. Just a gift from a grateful son. I even wrote a little card that said, "Time to be taken care of, for once. Love, Nate." They cried when they read it. My mom hugged me so tight my neck cracked. Dad just said, "Jesus, son," in that choked voice he only ever used at graduations and funerals. They left in April, beaming like kids on the first day of summer camp. I waved them off at the dock, filmed a shaky little video of their ship pulling away into the horizon, and posted it with a sappy caption about beginnings. Everyone in the comments called me a good kid. I felt like one. For once, but then June came, and I saw the photos, not from them, from Instagram. Specifically from my ex-girlfriend Kelsey's Instagram. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. We ended things quietly, painfully. No cheating, no screaming, just the realization that we wanted wildly different things. She wanted roots. I was still living out of a suitcase and a MacBook. She liked wine tastings and house plants. I liked freedom. We hadn't followed each other since the breakup. So imagine my shock when I'm scrolling and see her in Santorini on a cruise ship balcony I recognized. Same chairs, same view. Same damn wine glass with the Golden Cruise logo I had picked out when upgrading their suite. At first, I told myself it was a coincidence. A weird parallel universe moment. There are thousands of cruises. Could be anything, until I swiped to the next photo, and there they were. My parents, smiling next to her, looking way too cozy. Mom had her arm around Kelsey like they were lifelong besties. Dad had that goofy grin he only saves for family holidays and strawberry shortcake. The caption read, "Couldn't have asked for better travel companions." So grateful. Travel companions. I felt my stomach hit the floor. I called them that night. No answer. I texted, "Hey, weird question. Is Kelsey on your cruise?" The reply didn't come until the next morning. From Mom. "Yes, honey. Isn't that funny? We ran into her at the Rome port and she's been traveling with us ever since. Such a lovely girl. We missed her. Missed her. Missed her." I called again. Dad picked up this time, sounding out of breath and weirdly defensive. "Don't be weird, Nate. It's not like we planned it. She was traveling solo. Seemed lonely. We thought, why not? Why not?" He said it like it was a potluck and someone brought deviled eggs. Not like they had adopted my ex-girlfriend into their vacation, the vacation I gave them. When I asked how long she'd been with them, they said since Barcelona. That was over a month ago. A month. They had been island hopping with my ex-girlfriend for weeks, posting selfies, tagging each other, dining under the stars while I was back home thinking I'd given them the trip of a lifetime. Turns out I did. Just not their lifetime, mine. I don't even remember what I said to end that call. Something stiff and polite. Something that hid the fact that I felt like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. I didn't eat for 2 days. Didn't sleep much either. I kept thinking, why her? Why now? Why not tell me? It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the intimacy of it. My parents had hated every girlfriend I ever introduced them to. Too quiet, too loud, too ambitious, too clingy. Kelsey had been the one they tolerated, at best. And now, suddenly, she was part of the family cruise scrapbook. I didn't go to the airport to pick them up. I didn't even tell them I moved out of the apartment, because when you realize your ex-girlfriend is closer to your parents than you are, you start wondering if family ever meant what you thought it did. The day they docked. I didn't show up. I couldn't. They'd texted the night before, landing at 9:45 a.m. Can't wait to see you and tell you everything. Everything. I didn't need the stories. I'd already seen them filtered, captioned, hashtagged with #blessed and #besttrip across Kelsey's profile like digital salt in the wound. I saw them sipping wine in Provence. Saw Mom dancing with Kelsey during a flamenco night in Seville. Dad in flip-flops and a tank top, grinning between the two of them like they were the ones who raised him. I saw it all from the couch of a buddy's guest house, surrounded by the boxes of a life I'd packed up in 48 hours because I couldn't stand being in that apartment anymore. The one Kelsey and I used to share. The one I stayed in long after she left because I told myself it didn't mean anything. Apparently, it meant enough to her to take my parents there to my life without me. I told them I was tied up with work and couldn't make it. They bought it. Probably. Maybe. I didn't care. What I didn't expect was for them to show up at my job, like it was casual. I was in the middle of a Monday staff meeting, sipping burnt office coffee and pretending our fourth quarter numbers didn't look like a sad EKG when the front desk pinged my extension. There's, a couple here asking for you. And a woman, blonde. All three say they're family. I felt the kind of cold that lives in your bone marrow. I stepped out into the lobby, and there they were. My parents, tan, beaming, holding souvenir bags like they were fresh from Disneyland. And right between them Kelsey wearing the scarf I'd given her for our 2-year anniversary. The one she said wasn't really her style and then apparently decided was once my parents endorsed it. Nate, Mom squealed. Surprise! I blinked. Once, twice. Then I said as calmly as I could, "What are you doing here?" Dad clapped a hand on my shoulder. "We thought we'd bring lunch." Kelsey's idea. Your mom made those roasted turkey wraps you like. Those were Kelsey's favorite. I said automatically. Mom's smile twitched. Kelsey stepped forward. I just thought it would be nice to catch up. You've been so distant. I actually laughed. It slipped out like a cough. I've been distant. Okay, she said, hands up. I know this is weird, but a weird is when you run into your ex at a grocery store. I cut in. Not when you start tagging along on a family cruise she wasn't invited on. There was a beat of silence, a long one. Then Dad said, too loudly, "Let's not do this here, okay? We're in public." That made me laugh again. Oh, public's fine. You made the whole trip public, remember? You posted it like a travel blog. Mom frowned. You're overreacting. That was the sentence that did it. I hadn't even realized how close I was to the edge until she said it. But there it was, that old family phrase. The gaslight anthem of my childhood. You're overreacting? Said when I cried at my dog's death. When I flinched during arguments. When I asked why we never said "I love you" in our house unless someone was bleeding or being buried. I took a breath, then said it. You had dinner with my ex-girlfriend in Greece and didn't think to mention it. You let her live in a suite I paid for. You built memories with someone I broke my heart trying to forget. And you didn't just do it, you celebrated it, publicly. And when I asked why, you acted like I was the inconvenience? So no, I'm not overreacting. I'm finally reacting. They stood there, stunned. Kelsey opened her mouth to say something. I saw it coming, but I beat her to it. Don't, I said. You're not the villain here, Kels. You never were. But you should have known better. You did know better. She looked away. Mom's eyes started to tear up. Honey, we didn't mean. Exactly. You didn't mean to hurt me. But you also didn't mean not to. And that's what stuck with me. The casual betrayal. The laziness of it. Like I wasn't even worth the effort of a heads up. I didn't go back to that meeting. I didn't even go back to that job. I walked out the front door, left them standing there with the wraps and the tan lines, and the guilt fresh to stick. I texted my boss that I needed a leave of absence. He didn't ask why. I think maybe he saw the look on my face when I passed his office. I went home, if you can call it that when you're life's in boxes, and spent the rest of the day writing down everything I wanted to say. Not to them, not to Kelsey, to me, to the version of me that thought giving his parents the world would finally make him enough. I filled 3 notebooks. Then I booked a one-way flight to Lisbon. No itinerary. No plan. Just distance. Because if they could sail the world with my past, then maybe I had to go build a future they couldn't follow. Lisbon was loud in a way that quieted me. The winding cobblestone alleys, the tram bells, the fado singers whose voices cracked just right at the end of each verse. It was all foreign enough to drown out the noise in my head and familiar enough to let something inside me exhale for the first time in months. I rented a tiny apartment above a pastry shop. 1 bedroom, crooked floorboards, windows that stuck, and the constant smell of custard and burnt sugar wafting up from below. It was perfect. I didn't tell anyone I was going. No postcards, no check-ins, no breadcrumb trail for my family to follow, because I wasn't running away. I was finally running towards something. I wish I could say it was easy that Lisbon healed me like some sunlit montage with coffee and new friends and soft jazz playing while I found myself again. But healing doesn't look like that. Not for me. It looked like sleeping too much. Then not at all. It looked like opening Instagram, then deleting it 5 seconds later because I saw a photo of my dad wearing the sweatshirt I left at their house 2 years ago. It looked like standing in the mirror and realizing I had no idea what my face looked like when it wasn't trying to keep other people calm, but bit by bit, it shifted. One morning, I bought a sketch pad. I don't know why. I hadn't drawn anything since high school, but something about the clean, empty pages felt like a dare. I sat on a bench by the Tagus River and sketched a tram, badly. Then a pigeon. Then an old man sleeping with his mouth open under a newspaper. It was like relearning how to breathe. I started frequenting a cafe down the block from my apartment. It had creaky chairs and terrible coffee, but reliable Wi-Fi and a barista named Leo who wore eyeliner and called everyone amigo. He asked what brought me to Lisbon, and I said, I lost something. He said, good. Then maybe now you can find the right thing. We became sort of friends. He'd slip me day-old croissants with a wink and no explanation, and in return, I told him the truth about why I came here. Not all at once, but in pieces. He listened like someone who'd lost people too. That mattered. About a month in, I got a message from my sister. Just one line. Did you really leave the country? I hadn't heard from her in over a year. Not since Mom's birthday party where she'd called me dramatic for breaking up with Kelsey in the first place. I didn't reply. The next message came a few days later. They're panicking. Mom's been calling around. She said Kelsey won't return her messages. What happened? That made me pause. Wait, Kelsey stopped responding. Suddenly, I remembered something my dad said when I confronted them at the office. He'd called her idea to bring lunch nice, but his tone hadn't sounded happy. It had sounded practiced, like someone repeating a line they didn't believe in. Still, I didn't bite. I just texted back, I'm fine. A week later, Kelsey messaged me. First time since the day they showed up. I didn't know they were coming to your office. I stared at it for a long time. Then came a second. I should have told you we were traveling together. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I thought maybe it would be healing for them. For me, I didn't respond right away because here's the thing. She wasn't wrong. She wasn't malicious or manipulative. She was just human, lonely, maybe too eager to hold on to something that used to feel like family. I couldn't blame her for that, but I could choose not to be part of it anymore. I wrote back. I hope it helped. but it broke something for me. I'm not mad. I'm just done. She replied with a sad face emoji. That was the last message I got from her. Meanwhile, the sketches kept coming. I started posting them online, quietly. No selfies, just drawings, trams, faces, the outline of my own hands. Strangers eating in CAFE acute S. People started following. One woman commented, "This one made me cry and I don't know why." Another messaged, "Are you selling prints?" I laughed out loud at that one. Selling. I barely had the confidence to show them, but I said yes. I made a little shop, a digital gallery. I called it Unpacked, after the feeling you get when you open a suitcase in a place you don't want to leave. Orders trickled in, enough to pay rent, to cover espresso and toast and an extra croissant when Leo wasn't looking. Then, one night, I checked my email and found a message that made my pulse stop. Subject line, family emergency. It was from my sister. Inside, a single sentence, "Dad had a heart attack." I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't catch. But my body went still in that way it only ever had once before the moment I realized my parents came back from a cruise with Kelsey. And not a single souvenir for me. I closed the laptop. I walked to the river. I sat down and stared at the water. And I asked myself the most brutal question I've ever asked. If he died tonight, would I regret not going home? And the answer was complicated. Not a yes, not a no, just a long, aching silence. Asterisk, the hospital room was smaller than I expected. I hadn't planned on coming back, not that soon, not like this. But 2 days after my sister's email, I was on a plane. Not because I felt some urgent love pulling me back, but because I couldn't bear the idea of someday asking myself, what if I'd gone? When I arrived, he was sleeping. My mother sat beside him, holding a styrofoam cup of coffee like it was a rosary. She looked older, smaller. Her hair had thinned. Her lipstick was smudged, which she never used to allow, not even at home. "Nathan," she whispered when she saw me. "You came." I just nodded. She stood slowly, walked over, and did something I wasn't ready for. She hugged me. Not a pat on the back, obligatory hug. A real one? Her fingers dug into my shoulders like she was afraid she'd imagined me. I froze. Then, after a second, I hugged her back, and she broke. Sobbed into my shirt in that quiet way people do when they're not used to being vulnerable in front of their children. She said, "I'm sorry," more than once. I didn't know what for. I still don't. When she finally sat down, she said, "He's doing better. Stent went in. No surgery." I nodded again. Looked at him. He looked smaller too. This man who used to slam doors and shout football stats at the TV like it owed him money now looked like a child wrapped in cotton. I stared at the wires, the monitor, the half-empty cup of Jell-O on the tray. I wasn't angry. I wasn't relieved. I was just tired. He stirred after about 20 minutes. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he said wasn't "Hi" or "I'm glad you're here." It was, "Well, hell, you look like crap." I laughed out loud, maybe too loud, because it was so on brand. It hurt. But then, after a beat, he added, I'm glad you came." And that almost undid me. I sat down in the plastic chair. Neither of us spoke for a bit. Then I said, "You know what the worst part was?" He didn't look at me, but I knew he was listening. "It wasn't that you spent the cruise with Kelsey. It wasn't even the photos or the surprise visit. It was that you didn't even think to ask how I'd feel." He nodded slowly. "We thought you'd moved on, that you wouldn't care." I hadn't. I did. But that's not the point. He sighed. "I know." Silence. Then he said, "We liked her, not just because she was your girlfriend. She talked to us. She was curious. She made your mother feel young again. She danced with her in Spain." "Nate, I haven't seen your mother dance since 2003. I swallowed. "So, what was I? The wallet that bought your cruise?" "No," he said quickly. "Never. God, I know it looked like that. But no, he looked at me for the first time in that conversation. You've always been the giver in this family. And we let that make us lazy. We got used to you showing up with the solution. We stopped asking what you needed. That hit me, harder than I thought it would. I needed to not be the afterthought, I said quietly. I needed to feel like your son, not your investment portfolio. He nodded again. Then slowly, painfully reached out his hand. I stared at it. Then I took it. His grip was weak, but it was steady. We didn't say much after that. But maybe we didn't need to. Later that night, my sister and I sat in the hospital cafe, splitting a vending machine sandwich that tasted like regret. She said, "You know, they really did love that cruise." "I'm sure they did," I said, "but they didn't handle it right. None of it." I shrug. "Doesn't matter now." "It does," she said, "because you mattered. And we didn't make that clear." Then she pulled something out of her bag and slid it across the table, a leather-bound travel journal. I flipped it open. Inside, my parents' handwriting, notes, dates, drawings, my mom's terrible sketches of Parisian rooftops, my dad's list of top 10 desserts eaten on the boat, little moments captured in ink beneath them, always signed the same way. Thanks to Nate, I stopped flipping on page 6. There was a photo taped to the page. Not one I'd seen before. It was of my parents sitting at a sunset dinner in Santorini, and between them was an empty chair. Beneath it, scribbled in my mom's handwriting, "Wish you were here." That's when I felt it. All of it. The grief, the guilt, the love I thought they withheld, the messy, imperfect truth that they did think of me. Maybe not in the ways I wanted, maybe not enough, but it was there. Buried under years of assumptions, silence, and missed opportunities. I closed the book, looked at my sister, and said, "I think I'm gonna be okay." 3 months later, I was back in Lisbon. Different apartment, this time one with cleaner windows and a little balcony where I could drink coffee without being hit by a rogue pigeon. Leo was still at the cafe. He waved when he saw me from behind the espresso machine like I'd just popped out for groceries. Not disappeared for 90 days and a near family breakdown. "So," he said as I sat at the counter, still lost. I smiled, a little less. He slid me a pastel de nata without asking. Progress. I'd only planned to stay 2 weeks after the hospital, but something shifted in that time. Dad recovered slowly. Mom stopped pretending everything was fine. And Kelsey. She disappeared like a chapter I'd finally turned the page on. The last time I saw her was the day I stopped by my parents' place to drop off some papers for their insurance. She wasn't there. I asked about her. Mom said she left after the hospital visit. Quietly. No drama. She said she didn't belong anymore. She told me, folding a towel like it was made of glass. She was right, and maybe she was. Some people aren't villains. They're just bookmarks in the story you needed to finish reading. Now, Lisbon feels more like home than anywhere else I've lived. I sketch every day, sell just enough to keep the fridge stocked and the lights on. I started a little side project, 2 portraits of travelers and solo wanderers I meet on the street. I call the series Unpacked People. It's messy and imperfect and mine. One day, I got a notification. A new order came in through my little print shop. Same shipping name as always. Ruth and Paul Maddox, my parents. The note attached was simple. "Framed, please. We want to hang it in the dining room. Love, Mom." I opened the attachment. It was one of my prints. A view of Lisbon rooftops under a pink sky with a tiny figure seated on a balcony. Alone. Peaceful. It was called Still Here. That was the first time I cried in weeks. Not sad tears. Not guilt. Just release. My dad called that night. Said nothing for a minute. Then grumbled, "The drawing's real nice, son. Got that one hung up where the wedding photo used to be." I smiled. "Isn't that, like, sacrilegious?" He snorted. "That photo was crooked anyway, and that was it. We don't talk about the cruise, or Kelsey, or the fallout, but now and then he texts me a photo of a sandwich or a sunset with the caption, "You'd sketch this good, Mom sends recipe ideas." For someone she knows can't cook. And sometimes my sister sends a TikTok that makes no sense but ends with, "Thought of you." It's not reconciliation. It's not a movie ending, but it's something, not the family I used to chase, not the one I tried to buy with a cruise. Just this, still imperfect, still a little bruised, still mine, and still here.